welcome to the Learning for Legacy show with me, your host, Afam Onyenakala. This is all about the concept of making generational wealth understandable, practical, and accessible. I'll be exploring a range of topics and sharing conversations, interviews, and more. Because what good is building wealth if we don't build the people? Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about mindset. Now, often I've heard conversations that pit the rich against the poor. Rich people looking down on the poor people thinking that rich people are crooked. And I think our media conversations sometimes have a little bit to do with this. Now, the problem with that way of thinking is that if it's just about money, it can create an us against them mentality. And I personally really haven't got a lot of time for that. Because really and truly, all of us are on a journey. Now, if we consider the financial element, someone who is cash or asset rich now wasn't always that way. And if they inherited wealth, do they necessarily have the holistic understanding of wealth to sustain it? And if we look at it another way, someone who doesn't have money now may end up employing you in 5 years' time. So it's all pretty relative when you think about it. Now, I believe our mind is the greatest asset that we can invest in. So really, let's have fun with that. And becoming deliberate about the growth in the area of our mind, our will, and our emotions is essential in laying the foundation for generational wealth. And this learning, it's not limited to a formal education within a schooling system. It has to really become a lifestyle of self-education. Now, Earl Nightingale, he put it one way by saying that you become what you think about most of the time. A verse in the Bible puts it another way: be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And James Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh, presents it another way still, that a person's mind may be likened to a garden which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. Because becoming rich in our thoughts first can eventually translate to our pockets later. So in this episode, when I refer to rich, that means a mind carefully tended to a process of deliberate learning. And when I refer to poor, this means that a mind that's just left adrift. Now, if anyone doesn't believe that, just look at any wonderful garden landscape. It takes a deliberate process of activity to get there. Pulling out weeds, regular watering, regular pruning. And if it were just left adrift, it wouldn't take long before the weeds return. And it's the same with our minds, really. Now, the great thing is anyone can start cultivating a great mindset from wherever they are today. So I'm going to now apply this principle of a wealthy mindset to money. Because like sex, not everyone has it, but secretly, most people want to get some. So I'll compare how a wealthy mindset can increase the flow of money in our direction and how a poor mindset can cause money to flow from us in the opposite direction. So one of the things that the rich do, the wealthy in their mindset do, is that they understand how money works. Now, we can look at income in 3 different ways. First one is linear. Now, that is an income you can get from doing a job of some kind. And what the wealthy in their thinking do is that this active income that they get is used in order to set up an asset which will eventually generate more income. Second point on this is residual or recurring income. Now, this is ongoing income, and this can come from something like the selling of a license to licensees. It could be contracts, it could be memberships. And the third point is passive income. Now, this is income that comes from creating an asset once. Now, that asset could be a song, It could be a book. So it's something that once it's created, it's done. And the sales of that will generate income that will just come in passively. Now, the other thing that the wealthy do is that they know that their time is not money, that their time is a lot more valuable than money. The other thing that wealthy do is they educate themselves. Because education, learning is very, very important in the sense that whatever we put in our minds will produce a dividend later. Now, wealthy people, where possible, they own businesses as opposed to necessarily having jobs, because a business can generate more income for you through its leveraged systems than you can do simply by working in a job on your own. And what they also do is they hire people to do the things that they don't necessarily want to do. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're gifted in an area, great, do that, but you may not be strong in another area. So it makes sense to bring in people who are gifted in that area to push everything forward. The other thing that wealthy people do is they focus on the opportunity that presents itself. They have a mindset of there being no limits, because opportunities come our way all the time, and the opportunity you seize can create the great thing that you're looking for down the line. Now, the other thing that wealthy people do is that they only take financial advice from people who are as rich as they are or richer. Now, I'll give you an example. If you go into your bank, sometimes they will offer you an account, a savings account, that may generate 0.5% interest. Now, the question that I have is that if they're pushing that product your way, what does the investment arm of that institution generate for themselves? Are they generating significantly more profits than 0.5%? Chances are they probably are. So next time, ask that person who's offering that product if they're actually doing the same for themselves. Now, the next thing is that wealthy people, they create business systems for wealth creation to give them what I talked about earlier, which is freedom for time and money. Now, a business system could be one of a number of things. It could be a technology system. It could be a system based upon people. It could be a property, real estate system. It could be a license system, as I mentioned earlier. Now, the other thing that wealthy people do is that they sow money deposits. Now, these are deposits that you can sow into other people. And that shows a giving spirit, because you can't receive anything apart from giving it first. You think about it. Some of the products that we use today came as a result of us receiving a free sample at the early stage. We tried the product, we liked it, and then we decided later on to invest in that. So by sowing money deposits, what the wealthy are doing is they're investing in other people. They're investing in other opportunities such as stocks, such as various certificates and the like. And the other thing that wealthy people do is that they build a very strong financial base on purpose. And this is based on good financial principles. And a lot of that comes down to what they are learning and where they are learning that from. And finally, the other thing that wealthy people do is that they understand that the key purpose of money is to reproduce more money. Because when you have a bit and you invest it, it can grow and generate more income, and the cycle continues. Now, if we look at the other side of the coin, let's have a look at what poor people do. And by looking at these things, it's for each one of us to decide which side of the fence we wish to sit on. And again, this is something that anybody can start doing. So again, if we look at what poor people do, Poor people only really understand how to work for money. And that's not necessarily their fault. It may be due to what's been learned in the past. And the beautiful thing is that the things we've learned in the past, we don't have to sit and camp there. We can change our mind, change our thinking, and choose another path. So poor people only understand how to work for money and not how to make it work for them. What they also do is they swap their time for money because they don't understand that their time is more valuable than the money. What a poor mindset also does is that they entertain themselves more than educating themselves. Now, entertainment, we all need entertainment, but if the amount of time we're spending on entertainment is significantly greater than the time we spend educating ourselves, growing ourselves, then we have to ask the question, why? The other thing that poor people focus on is they focus on the obstacle. The obstacle. This obstacle in that way of thinking is that this is a roadblock. Because this has come my way, I can never progress. And they don't realize that more often than not, within that obstacle is the equivalent seed of success that they need to catapult them forward. And if they don't overcome that obstacle in some way, shape, or form, what will happen is that the test just keeps being repeated. It keeps being repeated. If we think about when we've learned anything in school, you take a test until you pass that test. You only graduate to the next level once you pass that test. And if you fail that test, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a failure. It just means you haven't learned the lessons yet to graduate to the next level. Now, what poor people also do, that poor mindset, they tend to take financial advice from people who are as poor as they are or poorer. The next thing in a poor mindset is that they don't entertain the idea of creating business systems for wealth creation. Now, what Warren Buffett once said, a very sobering thing. He said that if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Very sobering, very, very sobering. And if we ask ourselves the question, is that what we want for our lives? Is that what we want for our families and their future? I think not. What a poor mindset also does is that poor people don't sow money deposits. They're not generous with others. They don't invest money for the betterment of others. They don't invest money into various systems, various opportunities that can increase that for themselves and for those around them that they care for. The next thing that happens is that their money doesn't stay with them long enough to reproduce itself, because they believe that the only real purpose of money is spending it. Now, we all need money to survive, to live our lives, but if the only real purpose of money is spending it, we don't have anything left over to, number one, invest in ourselves, number two, invest in others, and number three, invest in systems that can be of service to others. So in conclusion, when we look at the essence of a wealthy mindset, a wealthy mindset is ultimately something that anyone can have. What we all have to just determine is which side of the coin do we want to be on. By investing in ourselves, by learning what we need to in order to grow and then become more valuable, not just to ourselves, but to those in our immediate sphere of influence, we then graduate into having a wealthy mindset. And once that happens, it's a bit like fitness training. At the start, it's very difficult, but the more you do it, the more the body adjusts, the easier it becomes until it's almost automatic. And it's the same way with our mindset, our way of thinking. and how we grow in that way. Thanks for listening to Learning for Legacy. To join our community or find out about what else we get up to, you can follow us on Twitter at Legacy Learning or on our website at www.legacylearning.co.uk. To access additional content or exclusives from this particular episode, please find the information within the show notes.